Today's First Alert afternoon weather update is brought to you by Lockhart Roofing. Today's First Alert afternoon.
Good afternoon, First Alert meteorologist Diane Phillips joining you on this Wednesday. We are hanging out at the First Alert desk and happy to have you here. I know we've been off a couple of days, as you are probably well aware. It is summer vacation season, so we've just making sure that we have all of our newscasts covered, but we have some extra time today that we can hang out here at 2 o'clock at the First Alert desk. So hopefully you've been still tuning into our newscasts and catching up with us there. But today I am going to be talking about the tropics because we have seen maybe what is a slower start to the season, but we have a hurricane that's out into the Atlantic, and we are going to be talking about how that is going to be influencing our local forecast. But before we even get there, some of us are really just trying to bring some sunshine to the area. I want to share a camera on our Vehicle City Harley Davidson camera, and we are going to see that we have quite a bit of cloud cover here. These clouds are still holding on. They are fairly strong for us, so that's going to continue to be something that we are watching as we go through the afternoon. Some other locations, though, are enjoying a little bit more sunshine. You're going to see here in Mount Pleasant a very different look. We're finding that we have sunglasses on. We have beautiful blue skies that are overhead. That cloud cover, that is only kind of here or there. So when we look at the sky tracker, you will see our conditions where we have still some cloud cover that is hanging out for us throughout parts of mid-Michigan. I'm going to zoom in locally where you can see that we've been working on bringing some clearing. We're trying to get that into yet Bay City, Saginaw, but still those clouds are pretty dominant coming across the thumb and still kind of hanging around going in towards the Vehicle City along I-69. We're still even seeing some of those clouds being a little bit choppy across Gratiot County and even western Saginaw County. So we are going to continue to see some of this cloud cover, especially for the thumb and the Genesee County area, because we do have some of this that's just being produced off of lake effect. So as the system starts to leave, it did bring in some cooler air compared to how mild and how warm Lake Huron is, considering that it is the end of August. But we are going to hopefully continue to clear things out as we even look at some of our cloud cover for the rest of today. Some of us are going to have a better chance at clearing out. So that's going to be through the Tri-Cities, further west. Even our northern counties already enjoying a lot of that sunshine. But just note that if you aren't seeing that sun, it's okay to go for a drive. We have dry roadways. We did actually have some rainy weather this morning in parts of mid-Michigan. I'm actually going to bring up our pinpoint Doppler for you so we can kind of highlight what happened. I do want to bring our data time back a little bit this morning, so even a little bit before then. This is going to be, let me kind of scrub ahead in time, but you will kind of see right here coming out of the bay that we have some of this green returning. So we had a very small amount of rainfall that was pushing through. So that's going to continue to head south. You can see that it made roadways wet in Birch Run. We also had quite a bit of rainfall coming through Genesee County. So some folks easily using those windshield wipers to get to work. As far as our school districts, some of them not quite all back to school, but we're definitely finding more and more of them going back to the classroom. So some of us did have a wet and rainy start. Thankfully, when we look at current scans, not a lot of precipitation here, so we do have the drier weather. And that is starting to take over, that sunshine as well, also starting to get a little bit better in our forecast on its dominance. But we will see that the cloud cover is affecting our temperatures. So we are seeing that we're still at 67 in Bad Axe. We have 68 in Lapeer, Flint, and Owasso. So 60s is kind of right where we are if we're under the clouds. But if you have that sunshine, we're quickly seeing numbers jump. We're currently at 75 in Midland, 76 in Mount Pleasant, 78 in Gladwin, and we have 76 in West Branch. So we are going to see a little bit of a divide, and if you are stuck under the clouds here during our peak heat of the afternoon, that's just really going to hinder that mercury climbing on the thermometer. So just be mindful that it really depends where you are at, what it's going to be feeling like, and what you are going to be seeing while you are out there. Also in our forecast, we are going to see that our chances of rainfall are a little bit on the drier side here. So we are transitioning to a more quieter forecast starting today. So as those rain chances from those lingering showers this morning have pushed out, we have drier weather then for Thursday and Friday. So that's going to be bringing us some of that sunshine that we're really looking forward to for the weekend. We do have some rain chances. We will talk about that when we kind of break down some of our hurricane details. But you will see that sunglasses weather for some of us today is going to be enjoyable. But if you do miss out and you don't get as much sun as you would like to see in the forecast, you will find Thursday and Friday we kind of make up for that lost time here. So it's going to be a bright finish here to the end of this week. Saturday, however, we do have a hint of rain. Watching the timing closely, as I had mentioned, that's going to be influenced by the hurricane. But going into Sunday, you can see that line kind of shooting back up into those bright, colorful zones. So we're going to try to bring and save our forecast to be on the nicer side for your weekend plans. I know some, as I mentioned, some school districts are back to school. For others, this could be the last weekend before school starts, as many of the districts are headed back next Monday on the 25th. So we are hoping to have the forecast to be nice for one last hurrah of summer, but even September can still bring us some nice summer weather. But before we kind of dive into all the details on the hurricane, I'm going to kind of switch gears here, make sure that we're all set up. So we're going to take a real quick break, about 60 seconds, and we're going to be right back to talk about it. Welcome back. Now, there has been a lot of discussion on Hurricane Erin that is out into the Atlantic, and though it is not expected to make landfall in the United States, we are still going to find that it does influence our forecast. It has a big role when we look at the atmospheric flow and how things are going to be pacing out as we go closer towards the weekend. So I'm going to bring up the current status of Hurricane Erin. You're going to see that it is currently a Category 2 storm at this point, so it has dropped out of that major hurricane status, but it did make it, because once you hit Category 3 or higher out of our scale of 5, you are going to be classified at that 3, 4, and 5 as a major hurricane. So we have kind of dropped down from that, but we do still anticipate that it can hit some more mild waters and have a little bit of a resurgence, getting closer towards that Cat 3 as we go into Thursday morning. So that's still going to hold, as we anticipate that this is just going to miss the shoreline, but we are still going to be watching our coastal communities. A lot of them are first alerting folks of rip currents, and also storm surge is going to be a concern. We'll look at that map coming up, but right now the winds within the storm about 110 miles per hour. That's the sustained wind speed, but at times you can kind of get that push, that gust of wind, and we're still seeing that around 130 miles per hour. So when they go and categorize the hurricanes and their strength, it's that sustained wind speed that we look at. Now, the storm has actually picked up some speed. Yesterday it was moving at around 7 miles per hour, and now we're seeing that it is up to 13 miles per hour. So as the storm has weakened, you can see it has kind of picked up a little bit of speed to kind of help it, but we are still seeing that it's about 530 miles just west of Bermuda, that location. Of course, we're also going to be seeing some impacts to the Carolinas. And as I had mentioned, they're really watching at a lot of the beaches some of the concerns as far as the conditions for rip currents. I actually do have access to some of our cameras there. So I guess first let's look at some of the storm surge that we have. So though we have that blue, I have seen some maps that have kept it a little bit higher as far as some storm surge amounts coming in. So we will see that we are going to be worried about that surge coming in and how that is going to potentially have some flooding in some of the coastal regions. Storm surge is really kind of the worst part when you have a hurricane. I know a lot of people think that it's the wind, but most times it is not the wind that's going to be the concern. But we will see that even around the Charleston area, that they are still anticipating quite a bit of storm surge to be coming in some of those channels, the Savannah, Charleston, Beaufort area. Even Myrtle Beach, anticipating to at least see some water impacts for folks who are vacationing there. Definitely going to be keeping an eye to safe water conditions. Wilmington also going to be seeing some surge. And even as we continue to head towards the eastern or northern Atlantic coast, you can still see that some of that surge is going to be pushed in and brought in from the storm. So even as we see this storm rotating, this is going to kind of be into that counterclockwise direction. So what that's going to allow is it's going to allow for that storm surge to get pushed in. So typically we see in a hurricane, if you were to kind of draw a cross section of it, it's kind of this quadrant here that we usually see some of those stronger winds. So that's why we are still going to see some of that storm surge as it continues to travel north across the Atlantic. Here's one of our cameras that we were able to pull from our network. So this one is coming from South Carolina. We are seeing this just north and east of Beaufort, south of Charleston. So this is the view there of the conditions. Let me see if we have a better view into Charleston. Doesn't look like we have a lot of water pictures. This one is going to be coming from Georgetown, South Carolina. Let me switch the view here. So we don't, of course, have any rain with it not making landfall. It doesn't look too wild here, which we're okay with that. We don't need wild or even crazy weather, but we are still going to see that folks have their boats out on the water. But of course, hopefully they're monitoring the conditions. Here's a view of Myrtle Beach. As I had mentioned, some people are going to be out on vacation and probably headed to the Carolinas to do some swimming. We can see there's a full crowd there getting in the water. So that's where that rip current, when you hear some of the stories that we're running during our newscasts and they have that rip current concern, this is really going to be some of the locations where we're watching as that water, though it doesn't look too troublesome, it still can definitely be dangerous for folks that are out there. So just a reminder, because of course we have rip currents here in the Great Lakes, that if you do get pulled in a rip current, it is going to pull you out away from the shoreline. You want to swim parallel to it. So just continue to swim along the shoreline and wait till you can get out of the current itself. You'll also want to signal to people on land to start to come and help you. Of course, they will have to be mindful of the rip current as well. So again, the best advice is to be swimming parallel to the shoreline so that you can get away from that rip current. Let's see, here's another view. This is a little bit more of a cloudy view. So this one is going to be in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So it's the northern portions of Myrtle Beach. And we can still see that those waves are trying to really kind of push in. A lot of people still out there on the water. I do have a camera here in Wilmington, and not necessarily an exciting view. Here's another one that we have for North Carolina. So this is going to be towards North Topsail Beach in North Carolina. We have some rainfall here. You can see the water a little more active. So this is, again, if folks are trying to swim, not ideal swimming conditions there. So it's kind of interesting to get the viewpoint as we go across the coast to see what they're working with right at water levels. It's as I'm kind of clicking through here, here's Pine Knoll Shores, North Carolina. So you can see those storm clouds coming in. The water is also fairly active, kind of angry looking with all that motion that we have. So that's why they are really signaling to coastal areas to be mindful really of the beach and swim hazards that are going to be possible. Let me see. This is a view out of Virginia, so obviously not getting a ton of cloud cover yet from the hurricane as that's going to be moving through. So again, this is the viewpoint in Virginia, some folks out there. And I'm going to continue to kind of click through some of these and see the conditions that we have. This is going to be Ocean City, New Jersey, coming up next. A little bit more cloud cover here. Of course, a lot of water action as well. But people are still out there. So even if you're hanging out here in mid-Michigan, if you have some family in that area, of course, stay in touch with them across our coastal states to see how that flooding, the storm surge, and of course, how this is going to be influencing the forecast for them. Now, I do want to go and kind of step through one of our weather models. And you will see, it looks like, okay, I have everything set up here. So we have, of course, the hurricane that's there. We also have high pressure that's been hanging around for us. So that's going to be in play for us. And we will see, I'm actually going to hop back in time. I forgot to put a little pause point in here and get that high put in the correct spot. So we're actually going to find that high moving in. So what we're working with here is going to be a hurricane, and then we have high pressure that's on its heels, and then we have a low pressure system that's kind of behind our first alert logo here, that banner. So we have these three systems that are going to try to push across our atmospheric flow. What typically happens is high pressure systems tend to be a little bit stronger than low pressure systems, so they can kind of bully their way through and they can kind of force it along. Now hurricanes, on the other hand, are typically a little bit stronger, so that means that that high pressure isn't going to have as much strength to kind of push the flow along. So thankfully we are going to see that hurricane stay not inland, but we will have that staying out over the water. So as that continues to push, this high pressure is also going to be coming alongside it. So as both of these come in, I just want to make sure that the atmosphere doesn't really slow down, because sometimes when you have a high pressure and a low pressure that are kind of stacked on one another, you can run into conditions where you kind of plug up the atmospheric flow and then we're stuck in the same pattern days on end with the same forecast. So it looks to be, with that hurricane getting picked up in the westerlies, that is going to continue off towards the east through the Atlantic, and then that's going to allow that high pressure to sink past us. It's going to be pushing out towards the east coast, which will help then for locations that do have storm surge. It'll bring some nicer weather on cleanup, but then we also have a low pressure system coming in for the weekend. This is why I'm watching rain chances for Saturday and Sunday, because if we don't see this flow continuing to move on by, that low pressure system can be stuck towards our north, which is going to then bring us a rainier forecast for a couple of days. And we don't maybe want that on the weekend. We do need some rain desperately, but we maybe just don't want it when we have fun planned outside. So we will be watching this. You can see that boundary though coming in on Saturday. One thing that I was watching is that we had morning timing, but already we have seen the data show up today that the timing of the Saturday rain looks to be a little more midday now. So if we have that just a few hours later, that means already the hurricane can be influencing the flow and kind of slowing it down potentially. So that can then change that weekend forecast. So if you have plans for Saturday or Sunday, make sure you have the First Alert weather app. That's going to be a great tool to have on your cell phone. You can monitor the conditions of your weekend, and then you can make sure that you are ready to go, especially if you do have to move some of those events inside. I am going to also be pulling up some of our local events that are happening today. We do have the Ally Challenge that's continuing in Grand Blanc. They are thankfully enjoying drier weather compared to what we had this morning or even yesterday. So as the Pro-Am's going on and a lot of the fan events are happening, we do anticipate temperatures to work their way into the lower 70s. Of course, that cloud cover making it a little bit tricky, but if you're going to be out there later, the cloud cover will start to break up a little bit. You will also find that we do have those winds out of the northeast. So that's why the cloud cover is holding on. They are a little bit breezy, so that might be interesting for how that golf ball is going to play on the course. So just something to kind of keep in mind for the golf fans out there. Another event that is underway this week is going to be the Genesee County Fair. So this opened up yesterday. If you are going to be going there, I'm hoping that we can get into those lower 70s, but just know there in Mount Morris, we still could be tracking some upper 60s for the afternoon because of the cloud cover. But if you're headed out there by dinner time, I'm feeling a little more optimistic that we will be seeing at least partly cloudy skies, some sun trying to pop through. Of course, it really just depends on that northeast wind and how much cloud cover Lake Huron is going to be able to produce. So we will be finding though that at least the forecast is staying dry if you're going to be going to Genesee County for either the fair or going to the Ally Challenge. As we wrap up here, I do want to show you our 7-day forecast temperatures because of the cloud cover and also just kind of this cooler stretch of weather. Highs are going to be staying into the mid 70s today. Upper 70s tomorrow, but we are continuing to build heat in, so we do have 83 by Friday. And the humidity is also staying on the lower side, so it's going to be feeling quite comfy. You will be looking at mostly sunny skies here for the rest of the week. So again, if you're not getting the sunshine that you want today, don't worry, we have more of it coming up. But over the weekend, we do have that rain chance that we're watching on Saturday. The timing of that front coming through going to be crucial. So again, if you have plans, make sure you're tuning in. We'll be here tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You can get the latest on the First Alert weather app. Plus, you'll also be able to get that forecast at 4 p.m. when we head back to TB5. But temperatures even a little bit cooler going into next week. I'm still keeping highs into the lower 70s. Not a lot of 80s though in the forecast. And we will also see that though we have some sun, some isolated showers are still going to be possible as we go into next week. So there's a lot to kind of watch. Though the forecast isn't necessarily busy, it is still a little bit active for us. So that's why having that First Alert weather app, I have that QR code right here, is going to be a really helpful tool to have. Now, as we wrap up, I do want to remind folks that we will be hanging out here tomorrow at the First Alert desk at 2 p.m. You can always watch us at WNEM.com and on the TV5 News app. All you got to do is find that live stream button there. We're also on YouTube and Facebook. Those are going to be the platforms that are going to be best for catching replays if 2 o'clock isn't maybe the best time for you to check in. And then also we're on Roku and Fire Stick. If you have those apps, you can catch us there. And then finally, Apple TV and Android TV. You can also watch us on those platforms as well. So there's plenty of places to hang out with us, and we hope that you'll join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Thank you for joining us. Today's stream has been brought to you by Lockhart Roofing.